If we could rise and salute the flag. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The Revere Zoning Board of Appeals will now come to order. Roll call.
Mr. Bacilli is absent. Mr. D'Angelo is absent. Mr. Lopes, present. Mr. Mazzoni, present. Mr. Pelton, present. Mr. Tucker,
Present.
present. Quorum is present.
For the edification of the audience and viewing public, where we have two members not here, we will offer the motion to continue after we conduct the public hearing. Our next meeting will be April 24th at 4 p.m. And I'll explain why we are going to suggest a continuance. With two members being absent, you would be required to get a unanimous vote. So if one person was to deny, the motion would be to deny and it would be killed. So I suggest that you allow the presentations. We will open it up for the public hearings, and then at the very end, your applicant or counsel could ask for a continuance till next month. First calendar item number.
The first application before the board is application A1902. This is a special permit application continued from the meeting of January 23rd, 2019. The application of Andrea Bennett, 19 Francisco Drive, Lynn, requesting a special permit to enable the appellant to further alter and extend a non-conforming two-family structure at 46 Arcadia Street by constructing a 7-foot by 24-foot exterior deck, 5-foot by 17-foot rear stairs, and a second-story addition at 46 Arcadia Street, Revere.
Is the applicant present? Just for the edification of the public also, this was continued so that the building inspector could answer the questions as far as if he felt this could be a two-family unit and have the appropriate parking, and he did reply that he has no issues with that, along with the site plan review. If you could press that microphone, just state your name and address for the record.
It's John Andrews.
Okay.
The architect.
Could you spell your name just for the clerk here, please?
Yep. JOHN-ANDREWS. And so also with the client.
And your address, please.
81 Burpee Road, Swampscott, Massachusetts.
Okay, so basically you presented everything. We had that question.
Yep.
Did you have to do the plan over or no? The plan was fine?
Yeah, the plan was fine, and I know you and I had talked. Mrs. Bennett here went down and spoke with the building inspector. She brought the appropriate paperwork, the tax records, and he did say that it was a two-family. That wasn't just a studio, it was a full two-family home.
So this was the question that in the jacket it showed 3 different permits, but the certificate of occupancy that was in there did claim that it was a two-family unit. Okay, I have to open up the hearing to any proponents. Hearing none, I'll close that side of the hearing. Any opponents? Hearing none, I'll close that side of the hearing. Again, with 2 members not present, you do have the right to ask for a continuance. I'm not sure if anyone had questions at the last meeting concerning this. So we could vote on this if you'd like.
Please. Sure.
So we'll take this out of order and ask for a roll call.
Mr. Bacilli is absent. Mr. D'Angelo is absent. Mr. Lopes? Yes. Mr. Mazzoni? Yes. Mr. Pelton? Yes. And Mr. Tucker? Yes. This
And
is
I
granted.
thank you for getting that clarification. Please wait till you get something from the city clerk's office, but congratulations.
Thank you.
The next application before the board is the application of BC Boston Development LLC, 141 Tremont Street, 3rd floor, Boston, Mass., requesting a parking variance, reducing the number of parking spaces required by 70 parking spaces in the Wonderland Transit-Oriented Development District at 646 Ocean Avenue, Revere, to enable the appellant to construct a 7-story, 209 apartment unit, mixed-use residential, retail, and restaurant use building at 646 Ocean Avenue.
The presentation, we will allow a 5-minute presentation. For any proponents and opponents, you will have up to 3 minutes to speak on this. So if you'd like to give a slight presentation. Yeah.
Good afternoon. My name is David Jackowitz. I'm the attorney for the developer BC Boston Development LLC. You all have the package that I just handed out. With me this afternoon in the front row is Mark Forlenza of the Belfonte Companies out of Hamden, Connecticut, and also Dave Sullivan, our engineer from Malone and McBroom, and he will talk specifically about parking. Thank you for hearing our appeal today regarding what I think is a very exciting project at 646 Ocean Avenue. First, I'd like to orient you to the site, which you are likely quite familiar with. The lot has long been owned by Alphonse D'Amico, who I think is here this evening. But it's in your packages as well. But the lot is here on Ocean Avenue, 646. And almost directly behind it is Wonderland T-Stop, which is critical to its location so close to mass transit. Next door is 500 Ocean Avenue, this project being built there today. And this is 650, which is an existing multifamily, and the Vanguard is next to that. This is just a broader, closer up view. Shows you this is 500 Ocean Avenue. This is Greystar, Revere, and Vanguard is the next one. Again, that would be Wonderland in the back. That's contained in your packages at tabs number 1 and 2. And just to orient you to what you have there today, you have at tab 3 and 4, you have a site plan and a parking plan. And Mark will talk about that in a few minutes. Tab 5 are some site photos of the property in its current form. It's currently used as a commuter parking lot. Tab 6 is the rendering of the proposed project, and Mark will talk a little bit more about that. And then lastly, at tab 7, you have a very detailed parking study that Dave Sullivan will address in a few minutes. The property is 1.3-acre lot located in the Wonderland Overlay Transit-Oriented Development Overlay District. The underlying zoning there is RC2. As you heard from the public announcement, it's a 7-story stepped high-rise mixed-use building proposing 209 units with retail and restaurant. That's sort of a unique component of this project. I think without exception, the other projects on Ocean Avenue do not have any retail or restaurant component. It was something that, well, in discussions with the stakeholders for the city, they believe was a really quite important part to add to this component, to add to this project, as it really livens the streetscape and adds to economic development in the neighborhood. With the restaurant and retail, we'll have 242 parking spaces. The code would otherwise require 312 parking spaces, so we're here tonight seeking a variance for 70 spaces. But as you'll hear from the parking analysis will indicate that we think that there should be plenty of parking for the use based on the other properties, very similar in nature to this, but without the retail restaurant component, where they have an excess of parking. And with the Wonderland T-Stop in the back, even more overflow. There's tremendous excess capacity in the Wonderland garage. We have previously met with many of the city stakeholders. We went through site plan review, and the preliminary site plan review indicated this was the only issue, the parking. It's the only zoning violation. It's otherwise fully dimensionally compliant. In particular, we met with the police chief, Jim Guido, and he had raised concerns about parking and traffic specifically. We sat down with him, we showed him some of the information that you have here today before you, and I can say without exception, Mr. Guido really liked the project and believed that the parking that we're supplying is more than enough to satisfy the anticipated demand. We also met with Ira Novoselsky and the ward councilor, and same thing. Ira's response was, if the chief likes it as far as parking, I think this is a great project, really likes the retail restaurant component, thinks the building is really attractively designed. As you'll see later, the parking here is, yes, sir? Oh, boy, okay. I wonder if we could just beg the chair for a little bit more time. I think with that, you'll also have a letter before you from Bob O'Brien. I think Bob is going to speak for a moment, indicating that our parking is at par with. In terms of use, in terms of utilization, that our parking anticipated is 1.16 per unit is the same or more than many of the other approved projects on Ocean Avenue. I'd be happy to talk about the variance standard. You have it before you in the application itself. It's fairly well drafted. Drafted in a complete manner and gives the basis for the grant of the variance. With that, I'll just briefly turn it over to Mark Forlenza, and he'll talk about the building.
Good morning, Chairman Tucker. Good evening, Chairman Tucker, and board members. I won't take too much time because I know we have the 5-minute limit. Sure.
Put that in the calendar.
It's Mark Forlenza, Brookfield, Connecticut. Forlenza. Yeah, I won't take too. I just want to go through the project quickly, just to orient it to what we're proposing on the site, and then I'll turn it over to the traffic engineer. As David explained, what we're proposing is a 209 apartment home community targeted specifically to two groups, millennials and empty nesters. I think it's significant to stay up front that unlike the other apartment communities in the area, we are targeting millennials, and you'll see in your package that the average square foot is approximately 600 feet. So these are very small apartment homes. In addition, if you look at our mix, again, in your package, we propose 50% studios. And the reason why I mention that, because it does have bearing on our request for a variance. Typically, studios do not generate as many cars, not typically, they do not generate as many cars as 1s and 2 bedrooms. So that's a significant fact that differentiates us from the other communities. Secondarily, we are including a retail component here, which is included, as you can see, on the ground floor. That's unlike any of the other communities. Again, this is local retail. It'll be a general store for the buildings in the area. In addition, it'll be a restaurant for the people that live in those communities. Again, it will not generate a lot of space usage because it'll be folks that are generally in the area. Just quickly with the architecture, there's 2 stories with the retail in front and a leasing office both on the first floor and the 3rd floor. It's oriented sort of like a U, and if you just take with a U building with a pool in the front looking out over the ocean, and then a courtyard in the back. That would be inside courtyard through the leasing office and then a pool in the front. Again, the target market is the millennials. There'll be on-site management, typically of what you see in other communities. There's 3 things I just want you to keep in mind when you hear the variance. 1, our mix is dramatically different than the other mixes on the street. We have very small apartments, and we have a majority of the apartments are studios, which will not generate parking. Secondarily, we do have a retail use that we don't believe the parking that is required in the zoning code is necessary given its proximity on the beach and with other buildings. And last and most importantly, which David Sullivan will let you know, is we studied the parking utilization at 3 buildings that are adjacent to us, and we compared their utilization, not what they're required to build, but actually how many cars are actually parked in the buildings. So we studied those 3 buildings, and what we found is what we were proposing for parking with the variance is in excess of what the parking that is utilized in those other 3 buildings. So we're quite comfortable that we can park for our residents, because frankly, parking is the biggest amenity for us, because if you can't park the residents, they won't lease out your place. We feel that it is sufficient. The police chief, who we met independently after our site plan review meeting, asked us to study the Wonderland train station to see if there was excess parking there, and we found, after 5 o'clock, as you would expect, there's an abundance of parking for overflow. So with that, I'll just turn it over to David, and he can take another 5 minutes when he's only going to tell you he's going to take 30 seconds.
Good evening. My name is David Sullivan. I'm a professional engineer, and I'm with Mylona McBroom. I manage the traffic engineering group there. We were asked to take a look at this proposal and come up with an estimate of what the parking generation might be. We did that evaluation. In particular, we looked at the Vanguard. So we first looked at comparing the demographics of the two, and Mark referred to this, but in general, there's 194 units at Vanguard, of which 72% of them are one-bedroom units. Proposed is 209 units, but 80% of them are either one-bedroom or studios. So the Vanguard has no studios. We have a mix of studio and one-bedroom, and a significant amount more of them from a percentage basis. So we thought that was a good comparison to make and to look at their parking demand. So we did that. So we counted the amount of parking there, and we had heard that because their parking was not bundled, meaning you buy the parking in addition to paying your lease, we looked at who was parking on the street overnight as well. So when we compared the on-street parking, or added the on-street parking with the people parking in the garage, we found out that for all of the occupied units, about each one of those would generate about 0.86 parking spaces, which is consistent not only with what we expected because of the location and the type of product this is, but it's also anecdotally what we heard some of the other buildings in the area are generating for parking. So if we applied that parking ratio, and again, that's a little bit conservative because we have smaller units and a greater percentage of smaller units, and we applied that to this particular project, we'd need about 180 parking spaces. Proposed on this site is 242 parking spaces. So our conclusion, just based on that pure evaluation, is that there'll be ample parking once this is developed. Now, why? Again, the unit mix is one of the things that drives parking demand, but the other thing that drives parking demand is its location. As Mark talked about, this is kind of target marketed to millennials, and many of those millennials are relying on mass transit. My daughter, for example, is one of those that shed her car when she moved to the suburbs of Boston and is taking the T-in. So it's not unusual, it's kind of expected when we got into this. So the proximity to the T and the unit mix really validated what we found. We were then asked if we could look at the other parking in the area, and this was by the police chief, because he said, what else is going on around here? Is there other parking? Well, we did. What we did is looked at the surface parking, the on-street parking. We looked at the Wonderland garage and did some counts. We started after lunch and counted every 2 hours until we got to early evening, just to see what was happening there. And what we found was at the garage itself, there was always over 400 spaces vacant in that parking garage when we did the count. But more importantly, what we found in all of the counts, as the day went on and we reached the late afternoon into early evening, the parking garage and the on-street parking and the surface lot parking was decreasing consistently. Why is that important? Well, with a retail use, you have just the opposite pattern. So when our parking is increasing, parking in the area is decreasing. So there's ample, I won't say ample parking, there is parking available out there for general public, but more importantly, we won't be affecting that, and we're actually, we match quite well with our pattern of parking with what's happening out there in the general vicinity. So that's as quick a summary as I can. I'd be happy to answer any questions. If not, I'll just turn it back over.
Okay, seeing that it's a public hearing, I'll now ask for proponents. Is there anyone in favor? And I would ask that, oh, I didn't know you were coming. Welcome.
Surprise. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, Ira Novoselsky, 53 D Hone Street. I'm the Ward 2 counselor, and this is in my ward on Ocean Avenue. And I have met with the applicants. I reviewed everything. I told them what my conditions were and what my thoughts were, and they seem to have met all my expectations on this. I talked to them about the parking and the leasing and to be included in their lease, and that we really didn't want people to park on the street. I was pleased with the ratio of apartments, you know, from the one bedroom to 2 bedroom, where there are more than 1 bedroom than 2s, and that guarantees that there won't be any large families living there, mostly for millennials. And also the commercial portion of it down on the first floor. They're taking everything into consideration, and actually they're helping out the other buildings by providing this commercial segment of their building. So I seem to be pleased with it. I look forward to a good construction and a good working relationship with the team and the contractors, and to make sure that the people on Ocean Avenue aren't put aside like they have been over the last 2 years with the other construction going on, and taking into consideration the traffic flow, the reduced travel lanes that have been created, and to make sure that people are safe driving that roadway. So I'm pleased with it, and I'm in favor of it, and I look forward to you approving this. Thank you. I know it's going to be tabled, so I'll look for the next meeting. Thank you.
Ira, would you able to get a copy from Bob O'Brien of his letter, just so you can have it for your file?
I did not, but
Okay.
I have their package, so, but I will get a copy of it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Bob O'Brien. I live at 10 Ocean Avenue, and I am Director of Economic Development for the City of Revere. And on behalf of the city, I stand in favor of this project and ZBA approval of this variance. Much has already been said, and I will not take much more of your time, except to note that the variance that is requested here is consistent with variances which have been previously approved by this body for other projects in the area. And in fact, as has been noted, it's even above what the actual experience of parking in nearby projects, specifically Ocean Avenue and the Beach House, for example, which is located farther away from Wonderland. So it's our opinion that the parking that is requested here will be adequate to serve both the retail and the residential needs. We, as always, insist that they commit to these variances in such a way that they will not have an adverse impact, inadvertently or otherwise, on the community as a whole, and particularly on-street parking in the area. So as usual, we have outlined a series of 5 steps, which we have in the past coordinated with the Zoning Board of Appeal, that will assure that there will not be any on-street parking from the residents of this property. We ask again that these conditions be made part of any approval of the ZBA. I would just conclude by noting that this is a worthy project. It's a particularly important project. It is the next to last parcel that we developed that will complete the Waterfront Square development. And perhaps more notably, it is the only privately owned parcel in the Waterfront Square complex. And we were very concerned that it be developed in a manner consistent with the plans for the public parcels. And in that regard, I want to particularly commend the existing owner, Al D'Amico, who has worked with the city to make sure that this final private parcel was actually developed as part of the larger complex. Having said that, we understand this is going to be continued, but in anticipation of that vote, we would urge the favorable vote of the ZBA, and we're more than happy to answer any questions that you may have. I will also note, just in closing, that as has been previously noted, this group has appeared before the Site Plan Review Committee. The purpose of that, of course, was to get the denial letter that allowed them to come before you, but they did also discuss at that time the substantive elements of the project, including traffic and parking. They have subsequently met, as has been noted, with both the police chief and the ward councilor, both of whom are supportive. I expect once the variance is granted, site plan review approval will be forthcoming quickly, and all of those things we think are appropriate and to be recommended. Thank you.
Thank you. Just for the note, Bob, I did note that in number 2 now, that you say that this commitment will be enforced by the Inspectional Service Department, which is keen, because that's definitely something that we requested to be added, and it's in there.
Excuse me, I believe that has been made part of previous ZBA approvals. I know it was in our letter of support for them. So I know the Vanguard, I believe, certainly was conditioned in that way. I will, by the way, just make one correction. This is not going to be the first restaurant in the Waterfront Square complex. At the insistence of the mayor and the Economic Development Department, every Waterfront Square project approved in this administration has included restaurant and retail space, specifically including the Gate Residential project under construction and the hotel about to begin construction. So this will continue that very favorable trend, which wasn't evident in the early stages, but is to be commended now.
Thank you. Any other proponents? Hearing none, I'll close that side of the hearing. Any opponents? Anyone opposed? Hearing none, I'll close that side of the hearing. Again, if you press the button, just to turn that on,
Thank you.
you can request to have this continued till April 24th.
Sure, if we could,
which-
just a couple brief comments, if I could, in less than 30 seconds. The conditions that we have seen and will wholeheartedly agree to would be that, of course, the parking is bundled with the rent, which will discourage the street parking, that the parking will be limited to 242 spaces, and that no leases with persons with cars after the 242 spaces have been leased will be made. We'll provide tenant bicycle parking in the garage at no cost and provide convenient access to bike sharing programs. We'll provide 2 spaces on site for car sharing such as Zip or the like. And we'll also develop a transportation management plan to encourage the use of public transportation.
Thank you.
And so I would request that we continue the hearing until April 24th.
4th. Is there a motion on the floor to continue? Roll call, please.
The roll call is to continue this to April 24th. Mr. Bacilli is absent. Mr. D'Angelo is absent. Mr. Lopes? Yes. Mr. Mazzoni? Yes. Mr. Pelton? Yes. Mr. Tucker?
Yes.
Yes, this is continued to April 24th.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
At that time, your presentation will probably even have to be, it could be shorter, but if you bring a computer, I believe that you can find out that you can go to some plug underneath here and present it on the boards rather than those.
Okay, thanks so much.
You're welcome.
The next application before the board is application A1904, which is a application of Christine McCarron, 450 Revere Beach Boulevard, requesting a 6-month extension of City of Revere Zoning Board of Appeals variance A1704 to enable the appellant to further alter and extend a pre-existing non-conforming structure to convert a single-family dwelling to a 2-family dwelling on Lot Part C at 450 Revere Beach Boulevard, Revere.
Good afternoon. Name and address for the record, please.
Good afternoon, Christine McCarron, 450 River Beach Boulevard, Revere.
Okay. The request is rather self-explanatory, but seeing that it's a public hearing, I'll have to ask, are there any proponents? Anyone in favor? Hearing none, I'll close that side of the hearing. Any opponents? Anyone opposed? Please step up to the microphone, state your name and address for the record.
My name is Lawrence Michelson. I'm at 454 Revere Beach Boulevard. I'm the front lot, and Christine is in the rear. And there's a problem with the private way. Since I have been there for 3 years, I have done the plowing, the cleaning of the driveway. I have maintained the driveway. I have put a new driveway in. Nobody steps up to the plate and wants to pitch in. Nobody does anything over there.
I'm not trying to cut you short, but that's not part of the appeal tonight. If you're
Okay.
opposed to her receiving the request.
I am opposed to it.
Okay. As far as the driveway goes, again, you'd have to go to the building department, take it up with them.
Okay?
Okay, I'm not trying to be rude, but that's, we've talked about that in the past. and
Okay.
It's unfortunate.
Well,
It's
I'm
not
opposed
part
to
of-
it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, are there any, no,
Thank you.
anyone else? Could you kindly step up to the microphone, state your name and address for the record?
Valentina Patterson, 452 on Revere Beach Boulevard. I am in front of the proposed two-family building, and I'm opposed to that.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other opponents? Kindly step up to the microphone, state your name and address for the record.
Kevin Fulgoni, 457 Revere Beach Boulevard. I'm not particularly against what they're doing. Oh, sorry. I'm not against what they're doing. I just need a clarification. The lot consists of 4 separate lots. And, well, I'll give you this. So,
He answered the question by, it's a C, D, and E.
and 4. The house is sitting on 4.
That, so you're correct.
So she's actually trying to sell the house with the plan and selling off the back lot separate. And I just want to make sure that that's allowed or not allowed. If you look at the listing on the front, I highlighted the part where she's selling off the back land.
You want to press the microphone?
The previous presentation to the board included the existing structure and C. To the best of my knowledge, you can question the applicant if you wish.
I just want to know if it's
Does she, you want to question her? If it-
Could you step up to the microphone and answer that question?
It would be in the location of the existing structure, which is actually on Lot 4. And I think the way that the special permit is written, it says it's on Lot C. But I think it just was confusion with the way the plan was, when the clerk looked at the plan. The existing structure is on Lot 4, and that's where the proposed two-family as well. The same footprint, the same everything.
Did you, John, can you, one moment.
And C behind it, right.
So it is part of two parcels.
No, it's just Lot 4.
C is not included?
You haven't included in your, do you have your application with you?
I don't have it. Can I just?
Your application included the parking and stuff right there, right?
This is all Lot 4.
Do you have the original, John?
I don't have the original application here.
But that there,
Yeah, this whole thing is lot 4, this whole parcel. And then this is,
The question is, are you including C, D, and E as a part of this proposal?
as far as building goes, you mean?
Yes.
No.
No, she's not including C, D, and E as a part of this proposal.
There wouldn't be any building going on, is that what you're asking? Or do you just mean for the acreage?
we just have to have a brief recess for a second.
On the special permit, it does say the existing structure, and then it says Lot C, but the existing structure is on Lot 4, so I think it was just a mistake.
Unfortunately, we don't have your old plans up here. That was last year. This is, you wouldn't want this voted on tonight. Are you asking for a continuance till April 24th?
If it's possible to have it decided.
One
to-
vote denies it. Keep that in mind.
What do you think?
Do you wish to continue till next month?
Well, it's an existing application.
And it's an existing application, and now we're seeing that it was for a parcel at C that was approved on, and now you're saying it's Lot 4. So there's already questions in the decision that we made before that's been brought to our attention. So I would suggest that you ask for a continuance so that can be looked at by the clerk on the original application.
Okay, that's fine. What happened was, and I didn't notice it until recently, but when I got that special permit, it's actually wrong. It should say Lot 4, but when you look at the plan, you can see why that mistake was made.
And that,
So do
it
we
could
need
very
to?
well be, but is there a motion to continue? Roll call, please.
Question comes on continuing this to April 24th. Mr. Bacilli is absent, Mr. D'Angelo is absent, Mr. Lopes? Yes. Mr. Mazzoni? Yes. Mr. Pelton? Yes. Mr. Tucker?
Yes.
Yes, this is continued to the...
I'd ask that we get that clarified before the next meeting on April 24th.
So how do I go about getting that
The
changed?
the clerk will notify you if there's any changes that need to be made.
Okay,
We'll look at the original plan and see what was presented.
okay, thanks.
I still have a question. My understanding was that when it originally was approved, it was for the whole parcel, the 4 little lots?
No, it wasn't for 4 lots. We had it listed as approved for parcel C with the, and it stated that there was a home.
So
The
she could-
home's on
she could sell the
parcel
back
4.
lot separately?
The back of the property is not part of the hearing that took place in April of 2017.
So it's okay to take a non-conforming lot and make it more non-conforming?
Yes, that was the determination back in 2017.
Oh, okay. Well,
But I appreciate you bringing that to our attention.
The next application before the board is application A-1905, the application of Paul E. Rupp Jr. and Heidi K. Rupp, 371 Revere Street, Revere, appealing from the decision of the Inspector of Buildings of the City of Revere, wherein the Inspector of Buildings has allowed the use of a building at 375 Revere Street, which the appellant alleges is in violation of City of Revere zoning ordinances. The appellant requests the ZBA to reverse the decision of the Inspector of Buildings and to order a cease and desist notice relative to the building permit issued at 375 Revere Street, issued on February 4th, 2019. The appellant further requests the ZBA to find that the former use at 375 Revere Street, wholesale product distribution, was illegal. Further, the appellant requests the ZBA to find that the proposed use is prohibited by the City of Revere zoning ordinance because the proposed use is a change or extension of use that is more detrimental than the prior use, thereby changing the quality and character of the neighborhood.
Good afternoon. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good afternoon. Paul Rupp.
Test, can you, one moment, please, a brief recess. I think we lost the signal. For the edification of the public, you will be able to view this on YouTube. We are live on YouTube, so that will be recorded. Our other vendor is not working at this time. Please present yourself.
Good afternoon. Paul Rupp, 371 Revere Street, the appellant. Quick question. Since I'm the appellant, I have neighbors and abutters here. Are they proponents?
You're the applicant. You submitted the applicant.
Yeah.
So you're going to do your presentation, then I ask for proponents and then opponents.
So people that are here.
That are against, that are in favor of the denial. How would this vote? This would be,
People in favor of his proposition, which is to all of that, what I just read.
so they'd be in favor of yours, so they'd be proponents.
Okay, so just so they know. Okay, as you know.
No, just because this is a lengthy agenda,
Okay.
you presented a numerous
Okay.
paper that we've already read as far as.
Okay, so then why
for
don't I do,
us.
then why don't I do this?
Okay.
I wouldn't normally read from my notes, but I think that's what I'm going to do to move it along.
Okay,
So forgive me for reading. So, as you know, it's our position that 375 Revere Street does not receive protections afforded to wholesale and product distribution activities as non-conforming uses under the current zoning ordinance because that use was never legally established before the zoning prohibited that use in our GB district.
Not to cut you short, but did you get the last variance that was granted from the Board of Appeals?
I received that email at probably around 2 o'clock today, and I asked what relevance that has today.
Just so you would have a record.
So you'd
I
have
do
the
have a-
record
thank you.
on
I do
file?
have a- I do
Okay,
have a record
just
of it.
want to
Thank-
make sure that
thank
you got it.
Thank you very much. So we maintain that the wholesale and product distribution activities commenced when this business transitioned from and to wholesale product distribution activities. At the time of the transition, that use was prohibited by zoning in our district. We believe that what happened is that at one point in time, there was an addition that was built at the back of 375 Revere Street. That addition was built to expand the storage and added loading docks to the back of 375 Revere Street, and which was to further the purpose of wholesale product distribution activities, which was not allowed at the time that that addition was built. So as a result, I'm saying that that wholesale and product distribution activities were commenced around that time. And when they were commenced at around that time, the zoning did not allow it. If this board believes that wholesale and product distribution activities were legally established as pre-existing non-conforming uses at this property, then that does not mean that commercial catering activities were legally established as pre-existing non-conforming uses at this property, as commercial catering activities were never carried on at this property before the zoning prohibited that use in our district. I believe that there's an incorrect assumption being made by others in regard to wholesale and product distribution activities. Those activities were legally, if you believe they were legally established, then that activity did not include commercial catering activities at the property. I'm thinking that what's happening here is that people are looking at the present zoning, and the present zoning prohibits wholesale product distribution activities, including commercial catering activities, in our GB district. And I believe what they're doing then is they're saying that, well, if we find that a wholesale product distribution activity was in fact a legal use, then so should a commercial catering activity. That's mistaken. Commercial wholesale product and distribution activities do not include commercial catering activities at that property. It never did, and at the time that they were there, and it can't be done now because the zoning prohibits it. If this board believes that the wholesale and product distribution activities were legally established as pre-existing non-conforming uses at this property, that does not mean that it applies to the entire building. Getting back to the addition that was started in the late 80s and carried through a variance that was sent to me today, that was granted in the late 90s. I believe that that variance itself does not, I'm taking a step back for a minute. So that variance includes in it, there's actually a letter in the file for the building inspector's file from the then current zoning attorney for the Biancos that says that it then admits that no zoning protection is afforded to the remaining uncompleted addition and is for storage of existing product only. Now, so getting back to the addition, according to that letter, the addition does not receive protection for a pre-existing non-conforming use of wholesale product distribution activities because that use was prohibited at that time. So it was understood that that was for storage only. However, according to the plan that was proposed to install the commercial kitchen, they have operations going into an area that should have only been storage. So they are extending operations into an area that's for storage only and should not be used for wholesale product distribution activities. I've got a memorandum on that I prepared that I'd like to give to the board that attaches a copy of the commercial kitchen plan. I've got the area that should be for storage that is showing an extension of, an unlawful extension of the use into that storage area, and I've got a copy of that letter. I also think it's important to note, since the variance was brought up, that just because a variance was issued in the late 90s to give relief for dimensional and zoning issues, that in and of itself is not a permit to use this property as wholesale and product distribution use. I can give that to the board now. I've got 5 copies right there. And the attorney for Bianco. Hi there. You're welcome. So now I'd like to shift this to the other parts of my appeal. So if this board believes the prior use were legally established as a pre-existing non-conforming use, then the proposed use is a change or substantial extension of the prior use subjecting it to present zoning, which prohibits commercial catering activities in our district. Here, the use fails on all considerations under applicable law, thereby subjecting it to current zoning. First, the proposed use is a change because no previous commercial catering activities ever existed at this property. Second, the proposed use is not reasonably adapted to the prior use because the prior use and the proposed use are 2 totally different businesses. Third, the proposed use is different in quality and character as well as degree of the prior use, as I will explain. Bianco's prior use operated about 60 hours per week. Here we have 24/7, 365 days a year. I am aware in regard to the proposed use, I'm aware of a letter that was submitted March 21st by Air Culinaire that claims that Hours of operation vary slightly, but it's rare that the facility is open more than 18 hours per day, which is typically scheduled from 4 a.m. to 10 p.m. daily, with staff of about 6 employees. That is not their business model. Also, I'd like to point out that it says typically. That doesn't mean they will not have overnight operations. So again, their use of 24/7, 365 days a year is not as it was prior, Monday through Friday, half a day on Saturday, close on Sunday. Further differences, Bianco, raw meat processing only. Here we have commercial catering of all fresh food. No Bianco, no kitchen, no cooking. Here we have a commercial kitchen and cooking. No overnight operations for Bianco. Here we have overnight operations every day of the year. And operations will be every day of the year. We have increased noise due to the increased use of the refrigeration. We have now exhaust ventilation and smells and noise that we didn't have before, and we have traffic, safety, and parking issues that are more completely outlined in my original memorandum, so I won't discuss those at this point in time, other than to say that I'll just have you refer to that. Now, and I reserve the right to reply to any concerns that any opponents have to that. So we believe that the change that I mentioned in the business type and the differences that I just mentioned will have a detrimental effect on our neighborhood. And like I said, I have some proponents here, so when you are ready, I'm almost done. I also would like to say in the alternative that if the Revere Zoning Board of Appeals contemplates the proposed use as a modification due to the fact cooking and commercial catering activities were never carried on at 375 Revere Street, and/or a modification due to an extension of the proposed use into that part of the building allowed for storage only, then the building permit must be rescinded, and the ZBA may order Bianco to seek special permit for the City Council in accordance with Chapter 1740 of the current zoning ordinance. So now I'd like to turn it over to those people in favor of my position.
You don't turn it over. I conduct the meeting here, sir.
All right.
Are there any proponents which are in favor of the appellant's request to reverse the decision of the building inspector? Kindly step up to the microphone, state your name and address for the record.
Good afternoon. My name is Abigail Klein. I live at 39 McKinley Street. My house is behind 375 Revere Street, down in the Presidential neighborhood, which, as you're probably all aware, branches off of Revere Street. They're all dead ends. You essentially have an M coming off Revere Street. The 375 Revere Street is up the top across the street from the elementary school, and all of the traffic routes down through our neighborhood. So my life will be directly impacted by any change of use in this building. I don't want to beat a dead horse. I think Mr. Rupp pretty well summarized the legal argument. However, even assuming that this is a legal prior non-conforming use, which I don't think has been firmly established by any means, although obviously we've yet to hear from the attorney for the opponent. What you're looking at is an extension of use that fails all three prongs of the powers test. If you look at any of the land court decisions recently that deal with changes from one type
Okay,
of
I'm
business-
going to cut you short. Your proponent, do you,
I support denial of the building
okay,
permit.
then that's it. He gave his dissertation. You just tell us if you're
Okay,
an
I
opponent
support
of his.
denial of the building permit because what will end up happening is we'll have increased traffic. The kids at the school next door will be at increased risk from delivery trucks. And you're also looking at significant increase in noise and smells through the entire residential neighborhood that's behind this general business zone because the prevailing wind is straight off the ocean.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak?
Yes. Hello, sir. My name is Terry Bradley. I am a 79-year resident of 43 McKinley Street. And I tell you that that area is not conducive to trucks and everything else that would come in, considering that the Paul Revere School is just right there, that in order for them to service, to bring in the stuff they would need to cook and then to send it out, they would literally have to back trucks up into the school. I mean, the area is just not conducive to that. And as far as the odors are concerned and whatnot, ours is strictly residential. It's not built for commercial. It should not be there, and it's not fair. And I thank you for your time.
Okay, your name was,
Terry Bradley.
thank you very much. Anyone else as a proponent?
My name is William Decker. I also reside at 39 McKinley Street. I'm a proponent for this denial for many of the reasons already stated concerning increased traffic use, also for just generally changing the nature of our neighborhood from a space where we are regularly looking at families and community members interacting to a space where we are looking at people commuting into their 24/7 job. I think that that definitely impacts what our neighborhood would be, and so I'm a proponent. Thank you.
Okay. Next, please. Anyone else?
Good afternoon, Chairman and Board. My name is Corey DePina of 14 McKinley Street, Revere. I believe that the infrastructure of a business within the residential zoning is pretty hectic. It should be taken into consideration policies that revolve appropriate zoning in regards to the neighborhood. Traffic is a nightmare already on a beach day, on a nice beach day on Revere Street, and during specific zoning rush hours. So I'm definitely opposed to the people moving in. Thank you.
Are there anyone else?
Hi, my name is Christine Tiggs. I live at 18 McKinley Street, and I abut the back of the building. I am proposed to it because of everything that everybody said, but also as a mother who has a child that goes to the Paul Revere School, which is right there, the chaos in the morning already with just the parents' cars is crazy. So to then add trucks on top of that is just not a good thing for the kids or the school.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Leo Thompson of 14 McKinley Street. I have the property directly behind the existing building, the sausage factory. And for many years, they exhausted the wash as they washed the building. So it was, I don't know what was coming out, spraying directly on my yard. With everything everyone else said, I just wanted to add that we suffered for many years from the exhaust. There were times I would have to clear it with them.
Sir, whether you, I sympathize with you, but that has nothing to do with what's happening right now. If you're a proponent in favor of reversing the building decision, that's what you have to speak on.
That's what I am.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else?
My name's Dennis Ranian. I live at 33 Washington Street in Revere, Mass. My main concern is the safety of our children and our families. Everybody mentioned the school, but nobody mentioned the playground we have in that area too. And last year, our sidewalks got all brand new, up to code. Now the streets are so much smaller, it's hard to get trucks and even cars down. So I'm against it. Thank you.
Yeah,
Ranian. Yes.
Is there anyone else?
Stephen Bond, I live at 20 McKinley Street. I abut Bianco's. I'm against it between the traffic, the smells, and the noise. Thank you.
Anyone else? Just kindly stand up and make sure you, because we'll be delayed all night if we keep.
My name is Janine Raphael, and I live at 11 McKinley Street, and it's been a mess since I moved in there 20 years ago with all the traffic and everything, and I just don't want the more traffic to come in when the kids' schooling and everything. Thank you.
representing my mother, Helen DiMatteo. She lives at 24 McKinley Street, and the ventilation will just be blown right across if they were able to raise it above, because, you know, the smells of all foods, nobody wants to smell it till
Okay.
7 o'clock at night.
Just for the edification of the public, a restaurant can go in this establishment. Am I correct? The zoning is available for a restaurant. But what I'm hearing here, as far as odor, if you're just opposed to odor, a restaurant can be in that establishment. So if you're stepping up to the microphone in favor of reversing the building inspector's decision, that's quite all right. But I just want to point out that the odor of a restaurant that could be there, and there's many restaurants on that street, but this property could be a restaurant, just on the basic current zoning.
Hi, my name is Nancy Ranahan. I live at 33 Washington Street. I'm here for the same as a proponent because of all the same reasons that other people have given. Number one, the safety in the area, the added stress on the streets is just crazy with the children. Thank you.
Could you just say your name again so we could get it spelled correctly?
It's Ranahan, Nancy Ranahan, Ranahan.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? As a proponent. A restaurant can happen, that's all I'm saying. It's part of our zoning that a restaurant could be there.
I understand that it's a general business zoning and that a restaurant could go in. Again, I'm Abigail Klein of 39 McKinley Street. However, a restaurant would not be the same type of use as a commercial catering operation, and there's a reason that this type of maintenance and distribution has its own special section of the zoning code and is
I'm
only
not
permitted by
disagreeing with you
right.
there. I said odor. I stated the odor question.
Odor is part of it.
But
It's
I
not
was
all
just
of it.
stating, the people that were stating odor, I wanted to clarify that a restaurant could be there. Because some people come up and that's all they were concerned about was odor. If you were listening here tonight.
I think most of the
That's
people
all.
who stood up said that they were concerned about everything everyone else
There
has
were a couple that
addressed.
just were concerned about odor. That's why I wanted to make the point.
They can correct me if I'm wrong, but a restaurant would be a very different
That,
type and
I
amount of use.
don't disagree with you on that. I disagree with you that people weren't just stating odor.
Hi, guys. My name's Jack Collins, C-O-L-L-I-N-S, 25 McKinley Street. I'm opposed to what's going on, and I agree with everybody that's come up and gave their proposition. But I'm just concerned about the 24-hour operation. And also, how many flights a day are they going to be operating out of there? Are they going to do wide bodies? Are they going to do domestic? Are they going to do private aircraft? Because that is the amount of volume that's going to be coming in.
Good questions, and that, I think that that's going to be part of their answers, hopefully.
Okay, yep, that's
But
one thing I wanted.
seeing that this is a public hearing, I first have to ask if there's any proponents. So anyone in favor of reversing the decision of the building inspector? Is there anyone else that wishes to speak on that as a proponent? Hearing none, I'll close that side of the hearing. Are there any opponents? Anyone opposed? Please state your name and address for the record.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, staff, members of the neighborhood, good evening. My name is Earl Duvall. I'm with the law firm of Duvall, Klasnick, and Thompson, located at 210 Broadway in Linfield. So first, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, what I'd like to share is that the Biancos have been operating.
Okay, are you speaking as an applicant, for the applicant, or are you speaking as an opponent?
For the applicant.
Okay, so that, I first have to
Biancos.
ask if there's
Okay.
any opponents?
Okay. I am.
Oh, you're in the opponent?
Yeah.
Okay, but are you going to be speaking as the applicant answering questions as well?
Correct.
So I'm just going to ask if there's any other opponents that want to get up and speak. Because the applicant will speak and answer all the questions. Am I correct? But no, with the present, we still have to ask about, I have to ask opponents, and then he would be able to come up and speak and answer the question. The presentation was already, okay, I apologize. So we're doing the presentation. as we speak, okay.
I mean, I'm here to oppose
Yes.
the appeal. So I represent the trust, and I represent the Biancos. The Biancos have operated from this facility for almost 59 years. And I would submit to this board that it's absolutely been classified as a legal non-conforming use. I did a brief, file review, and if I may, Mr. Clerk, I would like to distribute a few things to the board. I have some additional. So again, I just handed out two things, Mr. Chairman, and I just copied the first page of this. But this is correspondence, dated back in 1985 between the Assistant City Solicitor and the City Planner with regards to a legal opinion with regards to this property. And I would just like to bring to the board's attention that even at that time, it was considered, the non-conforming use, and it was classified as operating a wholesale and product distribution use. Again, wholesale and product distribution use. That is what was changed when the ordinance was codified, and the definition for that use, in fact, does include this use. And I'm reading from the definition, this use type shall also include commercial bakery food processing and preparation, including distribution and commercial catering activities. So again, without belaboring that issue, I think it's clear that it's a legal non-conforming use. With all due respect to the appellant, Mr. Rupp, I think it's very unfortunate that a lot of misinformation has been shared. Misinformation was shared in the appeal that was filed with this board. Misinformation was prepared and submitted in the memorandum. And then also, someone canvassed the neighborhood with documentation that is just not accurate. And it's very unfair as to how this proceeding has commenced. I fear, what has happened is that folks took a look at the proposed tenant's website, Air Culinaire, and they listed everything that company does, and then presented it in the worst light possible. All the concerns that have been raised this evening by the neighborhood are in fact going to be much more addressed and much less detrimental with a tenant such as Air Culinaire. What I distributed to the board is a table, and that table shows the activity at the location, and that's both for Bianco and the proposed activity for Air Culinaire. And I broke this into operations and use. I broke it into hours, employees, delivery vehicles, incoming delivery vehicles, outgoing, trash, heavy machinery and noise, and odors. And I think if you look to see, and I think many of us understand already what it is that has occurred at that facility at 375 with regards to, processing upwards of 100,000 pounds of, meat, per week, with retail sales, outgoing truck deliveries, lots of deliveries, back and forth from dry storage. There were 35 employees at that facility. 20 to 25 people were parked, throughout the neighborhoods. Deliveries Monday through Friday. The large trailers, over-the-road trailers, city trailers, straight job trailers, again, shuttles back and forth. Bianco alone operated 10 to 12 delivery trucks out of that facility. Now, if I just briefly look to the other side, there's only going to be, there'll be 2 shifts and maybe 6 employees during each shift at this facility. I have 2 representatives from Air Colonier here with me tonight. Currently, there are only 7 employees. 7 employees that would be working this facility. Talking about trucks and deliveries and what's going to happen, 2 deliveries per week, a small box truck each day for fresh produce. Everyone's talking about cooking and odors and whatnot. This is a boutique commercial catering for private aircraft. 90% of what it is they're preparing is cold food, salads, sandwiches, cheese, fruit. 10% consists of hot meals. And what do they have in there for a kitchen? They have probably similar to what many of us have in our home. A six burner range, a double wall oven, a griddle, a broiler. So there's not going to be, there was the question about how many orders. There's about 40 individual orders, from the private aircraft that come in each day. Usually there's 2 outgoing deliveries, one early in the morning and then one later in the morning. They're operating for vehicles for delivery, 2 Ford Transit Connect vans. That's the small van. The small van. I brought some pictures here if anyone would like to see those. One of them is refrigerated and one of them is not. The other 2 vehicles that they're going to have on site is a Ford Escape and a Toyota Yaris. Those are used by the employees if they need to go out and do the fresh produce. I heard about the garbage. I tried to talk to Rupp yesterday, and he's worried about rats and infestation. There's a dumpster that was there, the Bianco's.
Continued, and in hopes that the have
What the current intentions of the tenant are for this project, currently 6 to 7. I would just say, I would agree that I think it needs a public hearing. More questions need to be answered, because I hope.
And was so upset of what went out, and they get in on their door, whoever canvassed the neighborhood, shame them because.
With Massachusetts, and I represent the Champa family. Mrs. Champa and her son Joe are here this evening. The building that is located on this address is an abandoned diner facility, and there is no need to rebuild the diner in that location due to the limited parking. They would like to reuse the lot and put on it a pre-engineered steel building that will contain potentially four spaces for contractors. And when we say contractors, these are different types of contractors. They could be plumbers, electricians, they could be vending machine contractors, fire alarm contractors, kitchen appliance repair contractors, windshield replacement contractors. But it's someone who needs space for 1 or 2 vans or vehicles inside, some amount of storage space for the materials that they use as part of their business, and also some small private office space that would come with the type of organization that a contractor has. Not a large office staff, probably just private office space.
I'll ask that.
Oh, okay. That's primarily the use. These are not leased. It's possible one contractor could take 2 spaces instead of just 1 space, or 4 spaces. But the idea is that these are not uses that the public is going to come to. They're not going to come there to have their appliance repaired. The appliance repairman goes to their house. The security consultant keeps his very expensive security wire there and then takes it to the job site in his van. It's not nail salons, it's not cafes, it's not large insurance offices or travel agencies. The public won't be coming there. The parking spaces will be for the employees of the 4 contractors, who will probably leave their car, get in the service van, go to their destination.
Okay, thank you. Seeing that it's a public hearing, I have to ask if there's any proponents. Anyone in favor? Hearing none, I'll close that side of the hearing. However, the ward counselor did contact me and say that he was in favor. He has one item of concern that he is addressing with the client, and that's the back retaining wall, to make sure that's structurally sound and that nothing comes down from the street above. That was his only comment, and I guess he said there's still an ongoing conversation that he's gonna be having with someone.
Yeah.
And he left, he was here early, unfortunately, his wife is in the hospital, so he had to leave.
Yeah, there's some amount of, a bit of site work that needs to be done. There'll be a demolition phase, there'll be a site work phase, all of those things will be addressed.
The only other restriction that we would, as a board, put on is that there's no storage of materials of any kind in the yard, in the lot. It has to be internal. The only
Yes.
thing that would be placed on would be passenger vehicles in the parking lot.
Yes, absolutely, we agree with that.
Okay. So hearing that there's no other proponents, I'll close that side of the hearing. Are there any opponents? Anyone opposed? Hearing none, I'll close that side of the hearing. Is there a motion to continue? Roll call, please.
Question now comes on continuing to April 24th. Mr. Bacilli is absent, Mr. D'Angelo is absent, Mr. Lopes? Yes. Mr. Mazzoni? Yes. Mr. Pelton? Yes. Mr. Tucker?
Yes.
This is continued to April 24th.
Now, here when I made the presentation, the reason why we asked for continuance, because there's two members. Okay.
Thank you
All
very
right.
much for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you. Next calendar item number.
The next application before the board is application A 1907. This is the application of Stephen Giambelli, 22 Clark Road, Linfield, requesting a parking and height and rear yard variance to enable the appellant to construct a two-family dwelling on Lot 15 at 924 Winthrop Avenue, Revere.
Okay, from what I see is let me pull this out. There is a revised plan that was presented for now showing two parking spaces on the property?
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
Is there anything else that you need to elaborate on?
Not really, it's pretty self-explanatory. There was a previous structure on the property that burned a few years back, so.
Could you close the door, please? Could you close the door, please? Thank you. Okay, seeing that this is a public hearing, I'll ask if there's any proponents? Anyone in favor? Hearing none, I'll close that side of the hearing. Are there any opponents? Anyone opposed? Hearing none, I'll close that side of the hearing. My question was, before we got here, was that there was no parking listed and that was a concern. And I see that whole area is tight and you have the fire station.
Yeah.
So I am very pleased to see that you're at least putting some type of parking on that property. And being that it's a very tight property, you're gonna have to do some excavation, I believe, making some type of a small retaining wall in the back for the stairs.
Yes, there will be a retaining wall for the driveway system, including stairs going to the yard.
Now, and this is, how far from the property line next to you? Because that's hard on the plan that we got. How far are you from?
The left side? Or
Yes, the right side, the house next to you, which is 930?
Right. That obviously, the back portion of that house is somewhat close. It's probably two.
I'm saying the two parking spaces.
Oh, the
though.
parking is.
Is there a fence there now?
No,
I don't
no.
believe there is, because you got the height.
Right.
So you'll have to put something, or you
I
really
will,
won't
yeah.
have to?
I'm gonna
Okay.
put a little fence more for aesthetic reasons.
Aesthetic, okay.
You know, and it's about 4.5 feet from the inside.
It's a shame you have to touch that wall, but you really need the parking.
Yeah, I know,
see
it's
the point.
it's an historical wall,
Yeah.
but I'm leaving the left side of it.
So you will be leaving the center stairs?
Yes.
Very
Yeah,
good.
Yes.
Okay, that was my only questions. Are there any questions from board members?
Just the right side of the property, just to achieve the parking spots, the two parking spots. Yes, that's right.
Could you,
Yeah, 'cause I'm on the next street over.
Oh,
so
are you?
I know that, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, there was a pre-existing structure there, it was very pronounced. My proposal is much less of an impact on the property, but it did burn a few years back, and it was destroyed by fire.
It will enhance that lot.
oh, definitely, definitely.
Yeah, yeah, we have a nice plan for
Okay.
for it.
Seeing that we don't have a full body, you have the right to ask for a continuance.
I'd like to go to a vote, I think it's
You,
pretty.
you want to go to a vote now?
Yeah,
Is there, okay.
yeah.
Question now comes on granting the relief requested by the appellant. Mr. Pacilli is absent, Mr. D'Angelo is absent, Mr. Lopes? Yes, Mr. Mazzoni? Yes. Yes, Mr. Pelton? Yes. Yes, Mr. Tucker?
Yes.
This is granted. The next application before the board is application A-1908, the application of Brian Cooley, 364 Ocean Avenue, number 1109, Revere, requesting a minimum side yard, front yard, rear yard, open space, maximum principal building coverage, height, and stories variance, and further requesting a variance of the open space in the front yard and a variance relative to the minimum qualifying lot area of 4,000 square feet to enable the appellant to construct a two-family, three-story dwelling at 261 Bellingham Avenue, Revere.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Corey Rhodes. I'm an attorney with D'Ambrosio Brown, LLP, 14 Proctor Avenue, Revere. This is 261 Bellingham, and I represent the applicant related to these variances. You may remember this project from May of 2017, where variances were approved on this property. Unfortunately, due to some various issues, one being the strike with gas workers, unfortunately, the deadline was missed to obtain a building permit, so we're back in front of you for this property. It's a significantly sloped lot that currently contains a dilapidated house. It's at the intersection of Brad Street and Bellingham. And we've revised the project somewhat, but really the relief that we're requesting is nearly identical to the relief that was previously granted for this project or what is currently residing on this site. For instance, and is shown in the filings, which I adopt by reference, my client is requesting a three-story building. There currently is a three-story building on this property, and 3 stories was previously approved by this board in 2017. My client is requesting a front yard setback of 5.2 feet, which was previously approved in 2017, and is what is actually currently, very close to what is currently existing on the site. And with each one of these elements, I would just like to show that what is already at the property or what was already approved by this board is very similar to what we're asking for today. The only difference is we have been able to put all parking onto the lot, and there is a slight change from what was provided in the packet. Working with the ward counselor, she asked us to see what we could do about the Brad Street driveway. This is strictly a change to the Brad Street driveway. It is not affecting the number of parking spaces we are providing for this property. It is simply changing that entrance on Brad Street that had 2 parking cars side by side to 1 tandem driveway. This was based on some concerns from neighbors about the property taking up some off-street, some on-street parking spaces. So we've been working back and forth with the ward counselor to try to address that. And she said she was happy with the proposal and that we'd work to make a change there. My client has been renting in Revere for the last 2 years and really would like to get this project underway and moved in. And we're asking for your support after this long road.
Do you have the item number of the previous variance?
I do. I have a copy of it.
Seeing that this is a public hearing, I'm going to ask if there's any proponents, anyone in favor? Hearing none, I'll close that side of the hearing. Are there any opponents? Anyone opposed?
I'm not necessarily opposed to this, I'm just curious as to the parking. I live at 272 Endicott Ave, directly across from this, and parking, as you know, in Beachmont is pretty high premium.
Okay. He has a plan. Do you have a copy of, do you have additional copies of the plan? Which I agree with the original plan. This one here, I would have to take into consideration, but I would prefer not having tandem parking, perhaps move it down a little bit. But again, this decision's not going to be made this evening. So okay, we'll ask the.
It actually was in an email that I had with him attached to the back of the application. And we are requesting a special permit for non-conforming expansion to the extent one is necessary.
Okay.
And I think it's
Well, my only concern was the quantity of parking, and he has four spaces.
Just so you understand, the plan that we received, it would have been a wider, they wouldn't have been tandem parking. It would have been a little bit of a wider, and so 2 cars would put in. I guess there's concern because that area is so congested that,
right
that
now,
if they were to take the 20 feet, that there's always a white pickup truck there, and then there's the black car behind it, and I guess I frequented.
I know exactly who they are.
I was saying no, that let the white truck move, because I would prefer to have 2 vehicles pull in, not have tandem parking, because tandem parking necessarily don't work all the time. You gotta juggle cars. Joanne McKenna received concerns that if they take the 20 feet, that now there's another vehicle in the neighborhood that can't park there.
Right. Right now in the neighborhood, people are parking up there and taking Uber to the subway station.
And that's, I mean, I've traveled it because I was very concerned. I actually spent almost an hour there discussing stuff. But then I traveled by there all the time going to Winthrop. I'm not too concerned about an abutter because it's not usually the abutter's car that's there.
Oh, yeah, I understand. No, but as long as you get options.
They propose to have 4 parking spaces, which is.
Because also I find most of the tenants in the winter don't bother shoveling their cars out.
Exactly. And I'm glad you're here. But they would be, no matter what, they're proposing 4 parking spaces. 2 underground garage in the front, and then on the side, 2 parking spaces.
I got a question, because I live close to that property, and I was by there today. Unless I looked at the wrong house, I didn't see any parking spaces in the back. There's a house in the back.
Right now, there's no, the land doesn't, that house will come down. It's raised up with wood tie, the wood.
The one behind them?
No, the corner house. This is the corner.
Yeah.
And it has the wood railroad ties. That'll all be taken out.
Yeah, correct. This property currently, as it stands, has 0 parking.
Okay, are there any other opponents? Anyone else that wishes to discuss this? I'm lost at seeing this, the tandem parking. I asked that we continue, just because.
That would be quite all right.
I mean, the way they had it before, and I'd have to discuss this with you. So a motion to continue?
Question comes on continuing. Mr. Bacilli is absent. Mr. D'Angelo is absent. Mr. Lopes? Yes. Mr. Mazzoni? Yes. Mr. Pelton? Yes. Mr. Tucker?
Yes.
Yes, this is continued to April 24th.
Okay, I'd be happy to, yeah.
8 tonight, around 8. That way, so it doesn't get off my mind.
The next application before the board is application A1909, the application of Vigilio Pavlou, 102 Kimball Ave, Revere, requesting a variance to enable the appellant to construct a 9-foot by 4-inch by 9-foot by 4-inch unenclosed exterior deck with rear stairs and a 1-foot shed roof overhang adjacent to the stairs at 102 Kimball Avenue, Revere.
Good evening.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. My name is Attorney Laureen Scatino with an address of 245 Sumner Street in East Boston. And with me is the owner of the property, Virgilio Pavlou. As mentioned, we are here seeking a variance to extend a deck. We were here last year, actually, and we requested relief for an addition to the back of the property. So now we're just asking to be able to build a deck that would be about 8 by 9 off of the rear of the property.
Okay. I have questions, but I'll ask the questions after we conduct the public hearing. Are there any proponents? Anyone in favor? Are there any opponents? Anyone who is opposed? Okay. No proponents, I'll close that side of the hearing. Any opponents? No, so I'll close that side of the hearing. I have a question that you were here in front of us before for the addition. That didn't happen?
It did.
Okay, because the property is very confusing, and you probably got a call that someone was there looking around because you, I went down there and there was someone who lives there, so of course I had to introduce myself and walk to the back of the property. This is the property where there's a start of a footing. If I go to the left and walk down, there's some footing done there with a little drain. Am I on the right property?
I think so.
Okay, and then there's a brown deck that goes almost to the whole yard?
An L deck around the other side, that's not related to this addition. That was built 7 years ago.
Okay, but what, is that staying? Is that existing wooden deck that takes up probably 90% of the yard and then around the corner, is that staying?
There's no changes to the existing deck.
So what can you add to that?
So, as you can see from the site plan, there's just a very, very small addition to that deck, so that the addition that he did that allowed for him to put a kitchen in, his addition itself was about, was a small addition as well. So that's all we're adding, is the small deck with stairs off of the new addition.
Do you have a clearer picture, John, there? Yeah, the photograph, yeah, because this was, okay, you did go by it, so you're like,
Yes, at the moment. I had a concern, just as a resident of Revere, concerned Revere, that if I was your neighbor, that yard, I'd be calling inspection service.
have you been down to the property? Do you reside at the property?
Yes.
Okay, so this picture does not depict the deck in what I seen down there. The deck that's in place seems like it's a lot bigger.
Those are pictures of just the side where we were proposing the addition, the addition to the deck. It's pretty difficult to get the complete rear of the property when we took the pictures, it was pretty much covered in snow. We were going to be asking for a continuance on the vote anyway, so we can try to get you clearer pictures prior to the next hearing if that.
Yes, and there's no shed now, so where do you propose a shed on that property? The deck is open underneath there. There's no shed that I could see.
We're not proposing a shed.
But you're saying something about a shed roof. What's the shed roof?
To the staircase.
Okay, I'm sorry, because it just doesn't. So was there any cease and desist or anything put on by the building department because of the footings being there or anything? This seems like it started and then it stopped.
No, the addition.
I'm confused, so I apologize, but I need to get more clarification.
So the addition is still under construction.
The addition is done, it needs to
final inspection. There was an issue about October with the plumbing, but that has been resolved. So the plumbing inspector had some questions and that's been resolved, nothing to do with the back. The footing in the back was put there when they put the concrete out of the basement. And when the inspector came, the building inspector, he told me, that was, I think in August, I need this variance if I want to put that stair off the deck because it comes too close to my neighbor. And I have talked to my neighbor about it, which I did. I have a letter from him.
Okay, but so this was brought to the attention of the building department?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, all right, because that I heard, and then I'm saying, well, wait a minute.
The building
Okay.
department sent me here for this 8x9 deck. They told me specifically, you got to talk to your neighbor first on this side, Byron Castillo, and then if you get a variance, then you can finish the way you want. If not, you just have to leave the door here and you can build the deck.
Okay, but currently here in this picture, you have a blue ladder here. It seems that this deck was already extended, because it doesn't seem like you have this distance to the door. Or is it just the way I'm looking at the
I
picture?
think it's just the way you're looking at the picture. We haven't touched the deck itself.
No, this was built like that in 2000.
All right, I'm just going to show my counterpart here. Did I take it off of you?
We do have a letter from the neighbor that would be closest to the portion of the deck in support of the project as well.
Okay. I know that we're going to be continuous, but I would ask that perhaps you take some aerial photos from upstairs in the house going down so we can get a look. And then before the next hearing, clean up the yard so that if we're going to be going there to really get a good look at it. Because right now, even if you take the trash out, I know the snow and stuff was there, but
This is a little, I'll try, there's a little difficult. Part of my understanding with the neighbor around this was to clean up something and also to cut a little tree that was because
well, the tree's been cut, right?
the reason is because the addition that we did, we had to cut some roots and there was a concern that now those trees are not stable and that may fall on his house, so then we had to cut those. So now you can imagine, I also have those trees cut down there.
Yeah, I saw that, but if you look in your yard, it looks like
We'll have to bring the dumpster.
you have to get that stuff out of there, especially before you were to do any construction, because then you'd be prohibited to get it out of there. That's my concern. I think he's raising the same concern, is that if you start to do anything, you're going to be landlocked in there and your yard is full to the back.
Absolutely. I think some of the issue with him cleaning up that he was trying to describe was with the winter months, it was
Oh, I know.
difficult to get the
Yep.
trees and everything out of there. So the only way to really,
We had 14 dumpsters going in and out. So
Now, the addition was in the front,
no, in the rear, right off of the deck.
and you matched that up nicely then.
the addition is only about.
It was
less than
9 by,
10%
yeah,
of the
it was like 9 by, it was a 9 by 9 addition. It was small.
Oh, okay. All righty. Is there a motion to continue? Roll
Question
call.
now comes on continuing this matter. Mr. Bacilli is absent, Mr. D'Angelo is absent. Mr. Lopes? Yes. Mr. Mazzoni? Yes. Mr. Pelton? Yes. Mr. Tucker?
Yes.
Yes, this is continued to April 24th.
Thank you.
The next application before the board is A1910. Please, what took place here was an error in the legal ads and the notifications, which will require that we re-advertise this and re-notice the abutters to be held on the evening of April 24th.
Okay, so this will be continued and advertised properly.
The next application before the board is application A1911, which is the application of Hector Garcia and Annabelle Mulo, 74 Hurd Street, Chelsea, requesting a special permit and variance to enable the appellants to modify a non-conforming single-family dwelling by converting the building to a two-family dwelling with parking in the front yard at 61 Kingman Avenue, Revere.
Hi, my name is Balmori Valley with Coleman Construction and representing Annabelle.
Okay. It's pretty simple. I went up and viewed the property, and I believe a few of the other members did. Where it's a public hearing, I have to ask if there's any proponents, anyone in favor? Hearing none, I'll close that side of the hearing. Any opponents? Anyone opposed? Hearing none, I'll close that side of the hearing. I did visit the property. In fact, spent 45 minutes trying to get up the street because they're doing the paving. Are you going to be doing any excavation in the front?
None at all.
Currently? So they have to be 2 9 by 18 spaces, and I think that was going to be very tight if I look at the plan.
So we can configure it a number of different ways if that's the problem. But the problem that the building inspector brought up to us is that they don't want any vehicles parked in front of the property because it's against city ordinances.
Yes, you can't
But
park it in front of the house, so.
What I see with that is literally on the whole street and for a couple of blocks, there's only vehicles parked in front of their houses.
It's not, they didn't get variances or anything to do it, so it's not legal. But how did you propose it in your plan here?
It's on the drawings.
So you're only proposing one space on there?
No, there's already a parking that's already set up, but that's an additional space.
So he would need front yard parking variance if the,
Oh, that might be the old ones.
okay, this one here was November of 2014 with the 4 spaces, right?
Okay, yep.
And then this one here, the 3/8/2019 has no spaces listed. So what did you present to site, you went up to site plan review?
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to look at the new plot plan that we do. I think he may have forgot to put the parking spaces on that one.
But did you go to site plan review with some plan?
Yes, I did.
And what plan did you present them with?
The one that you guys have with right now.
With this one with the 4 parking spaces on it? Or this one here?
No, that, we presented the one with the 4 parking spaces.
And they told you that they didn't want the front yard parking?
Yeah, they didn't want the front yard parking or the side where they have vehicles parked already.
Or okay, well, this is gonna be continued, but I'll have to get clarification from them, because you'll have to present a plan that depicts 4 spaces, 9 by 18.
Okay.
I believe that the plan that you presented back in November of 2014 date, do you have that one? Okay, that one depicts 4 spaces, 2 in the front and then 2 on the side tandem. If that's what you're gonna be presenting with us with, then you have to clarify that with the site plan review.
Okay.
Or do they have to go back to site plan? They don't have to go back to site plan review.
So we just have to present that to you next time we come here. Okay. All right, thank you very much.
Updated it, so that's all. Just have it updated.
so this is.
Can you first show to the clerk? Oh, that's your site, yeah, that's not, that's the drawing. We need the plot plan. The date's up on the top. Okay, so update that. The abutters here left, facing the house to the left. Have you talked to them?
He said he's spoken to all his neighbors.
Okay, the one to the right, them, the left, someone was concerned they didn't know about that when I went and asked questions.
Proposal for the Loomis Street. There is a lot out there that was originally sold in the 1920s, but as it...
That
Lot 20, that's fine, that is not behind my house. I'm the one going further down.
Michael, just clarification, I was there this morning. This is already constructed, so.
Correct. 54, this drive, now if we're asking for 56, two-family